Hello everyone, Luke aka TARDIS Guy 123 here, and last week Arachnids in the UK aired on TV and many people drew the obvious comparison to Planet of the Spiders, a Third Doctor classic. But I felt that a certain other Third Doctor story from just the year before had even more in common with it. Yes, I am of course talking about The Green Death, and since we are talking about a Third Doctor story, I thought it would be appropriate to bring none other than the Third Doctor expert himself aboard. Say hello to Ben, aka Pertwee Smith 11.
Hello, I'm the scientific advisor.
Yes, and I am Unit, I guess, now. Or the Brigadier. I don't know. Oh, wait, that's John Coleshaw now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all changed.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a different discussion for another day. So, for now, let's start with our basic thoughts on both the story, and then we'll get into why they are so similar and why I thought it would be appropriate to draw a comparison between them. This isn't going to be like a regular thing comparing New Who to Classic Who in terms of stories, because if you follow my channel, you will know that nothing is a regular thing here, including uploading. So, yes, but just thought these stories had a very lot in common, which we'll get to shortly. So start off first, then just what are your overall thoughts on The Green Death as a story?
I think The Green Death it's one of those all-time classic stories. When you think of the Pertwee era, you think of The Green Death, it's iconic. And the thing with the Pertwee era in particular is it's got such strong messages what are still relevant to this day. And The Green Death, I would say, is even more punchier now than when it was back in the 70s, because you've got the whole thing about protein. It sets up everything nicely within it, because you've got the protein thing, Joe eating their apple and doctor's like, well, you need, protein, the best thing for breakfast, which sets up, Professor Jones's fungus thing, which will later become a big thing with the maggots, which is relevant to the whole sort of vegan movement, which has kind of exploded over the last couple of years. You've got renewable energy and, finding alternative sort of sources. So I think that it's a very relevant story, which is beautiful in this case. And just the ending is really powerful. Like, I think the ending is what just is the cherry on the cake, and it's the best departure for any companion, in my opinion, because it doesn't need this big, grand, epic score. It's just, silence of the Doctor, walking away and accepting that Joe's gone, and he drives off into the sunset in Bessie. And yeah, The Green Death, iconic for many reasons.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I feel that you're right there with how much more relevant it has become since then. Like you say, vegan movement has taken off even more, and just the whole messages about global warming and everything have very much become even more relevant as things have gone on. And I think the Pertwee era in general was very forward thinking with that. I think Barry Letts himself was very much the driving force of it.
Very much ahead of his time.
Yeah, definitely. And for my thoughts on the story, I think before when I've watched it, I haven't been the biggest fan of it. I think I've enjoyed the first three episodes. Then when it gets to the whole boss stuff, I have enjoyed it less. But upon rewatching it, like earlier this week, I enjoyed that stuff a whole lot more. I will be honest. I felt like the whole thing flowed a lot better from part 1 to 6, and I feel like I do still have some problems with it. I feel like Boss suddenly wanted to take over the world at the end wasn't necessary as a threat. I think he had enough going on there without that. And it does sort of leave the maggots as a bit of a side plot in a way. Jo, unfortunately, doesn't have too much to do in the second half of her final story, except for just watching over, what's it called?
Professor Jones?
Is it Cliff?
Yeah, Cliff Jones.
Yeah, that's it, Clifford Jones. She's sort of like watching over him a lot and sort of being a nursemaid, I guess, which is unfortunate. But then you do have her going down into the mine earlier in the story on her own. Well, not on her own, but without the Doctor and Unit. She's
with Bert. I love Bert.
Yeah, great. And that's quite emotional as well when you find out that he's died, and Joe's quite caught up over that. So she does have her moments throughout the start. But one of my problems with Jo in this story is the way it reverts her character back to how she was in Terror of the Autons a bit, where she's clumsy all the time. And you sort of feel like her character had grown beyond that.
Maybe. I thought that was kind of a nice little parallel, because when she first meets the Doctor, she's bumbling, ruining like his experiment. So I thought that was quite a nice little parallel, because there is a line in the scene before, oh, he reminds me of a younger version of you. So I kind of think that's what the theme they were trying to do.
Yeah, I get what they were trying to do. I feel like maybe they went a bit too over the top with it. Like it's too much clumsiness in a way.
That's probably just Katy. She couldn't see where she was going, to be honest.
Yeah. But I just feel like for something that they had moved on from since Terror of the Autons, it's a bit of an odd character trait to be brought back so full on, because it is quite prevalent in this story. She messes up quite a few things. It's not just like one or two things, which would be okay. It feels almost like reverting the progress the character had made a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got to love it just for that those final few minutes.
It's bittersweet.
Yeah, it is very well done. It is probably the best companion departure we're ever going to get, I think.
Well, I mean, we'll soon find out in a couple of weeks whether, a certain Series 11 companion can break our hearts.
Yeah, yes. He's doing an all right job of that so far, isn't he?
Oh, he definitely is.
Yeah, since we've mentioned Series 11, your thoughts on Arachnids in the UK?
It's one of those episodes what's changed rewatching it, because now I know what to expect. Because when you first sit down and you watch it, you think, okay, they're trying to do a creepy story here. So, I'm expecting scares, thrills, and that kind of thing. But then you realize that it's trying to be a bit of a ridiculous story, because it's a harmless, fun story. Because I think the problem with this story is it doesn't have a set direction, whereas the Green Death has a clear outlet, what it's trying to do. Because with Arachnids, it doesn't know if it's trying to be a family drama or a creepy story or a political story. It just doesn't really know what it's doing. It kind of swaps and changes. But I think watching it back, I found a lot more fun in it, because I kind of realized it's just meant to be a bit of harmless fun, especially with the American guy, with Kevin, and how vulnerable he becomes. I think that he's not meant to be funny, but you just laugh at him anyway. So I think Arachnids, it's just harmless fun. I mean, it's nothing stand. That's probably the weakest in Series 11 so far. But yeah, it's like what we said on Sunday, that it's got so many ideas, it just doesn't know where to go with those ideas.
Yeah, agreed. And for me, upon rewatching it, I did get a bit more enjoyment out of it. I feel like on the first watch, what drives you through it is that mystery. And I feel like that's Chibnall's thing in a way, isn't it? Like a lot of the time he sets up these mysteries that don't necessarily mean too much, but because you don't have that answer to them, it's what drives you through the story. It's what keeps you watching, because you want to find out what the answers are. And then when you get them, you're sort of left with not much, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's all build up, and then it's like a 5-minute Sonic it or whatever.
Yeah, that's
Chibnall.
Yeah, hopefully he'll grow beyond that, but especially this episode felt like sort of a bit of a rush job, I guess. Felt like it needed a couple more drafts, maybe.
For me, this episode is it's meant to be fun, and it's meant to be really important, because we had such a serious episode with Rosa. It needed to be that light, fluffy story.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, it's meant to be important because this is the first time the gang have gone back to Sheffield. So I feel like they should have done a little bit more with that.
Yeah, that's true. It's very much like a romp, isn't it? It's just meant to be something fun to stick on and throw away, really. It's very much Sunday popcorn watching, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely matches Chibnall's slogan.
It's nothing too meaty or fungusy. It is just something light and simple, really. And it does have things that kind of come together, but you can't look at them too closely, because then it sort of doesn't quite add up, really.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So now we've established our thoughts on both the stories, let's talk about what the similarities are. So I think the obvious one would be the toxic waste, isn't it? From both these big companies, toxic waste has been pumped down into a mine as well, and that has caused some regular everyday creatures to grow a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And also have a bit of a almost companion departure at the start of both stories, don't you?
You do, but the Green Death. Well, the Green Death plays it in part one, much like Arachnids did. But obviously, the departure happens in the Green Death in episode 6. And going back to the sort of landfill type of thing, both companies are aware of what they're doing. They just don't realize what damage they're doing. But another comparison is the Doctor's a woman. Well, Pertwee dresses as a woman for a brief amount of time.
Yeah, there we go.
In this, so there's another similarity.
The answer to buying a woman's clothes.
He borrowed Doris's cleaning getup.
Oh yes.
And then what else? I noticed. I mean, this is completely just me looking into it way too much.
Go for it.
Graham's end costume, he's got that sort of royal blue jump with the sort of the red trim, on the V-neck, very much like the Third Doctor's jacket throughout this story. But that's me looking into things, too much within it.
Yeah, I think. Well, I guess you could sort of draw a parallel between the role of what was the scientist's name in this? In
Arachnids.
Yeah.
I can't remember her name.
No, I mean, but yeah, her role in this could sort of be drawn as similar to the role of the nuthatch in general, and sort of how they tie into the solution with the fungus being eaten for maggots. It sort of ties into her being connected to the reason for the spiders growing big in the first place.
But I think they were trying to develop the web, trying to harness that power, weren't they?
Yeah, that was.
I think that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah, they're sort of like looking into different avenues they could explore with spiders in general, I think, wasn't it? Yeah. And then through that, they created the ones mixed with toxic waste that became these giant spiders and everything.
Which you don't really think's toxic waste.
Because
Yaz's family's got it in their kitchen, so you're like, well, it's meant to be toxic. Why you got it in your kitchen?
Yeah. Well, I think the idea was that through it all breaking down in there, it became toxic, wasn't it? But yeah, then the whole idea of that spilling out somehow. How does that spill out?
Whereas I feel like the Green Death, it actually did spill out because you've got the maggots, literally going out,
burrow out, and everything.
Yeah.
And that's I guess because maybe it has more time. The Green Death can deal with the consequences of that. Like the business is actively trying to cover it up, whereas in this story, all we get for sort of a sense of a cover up is Robertson saying he's going to pay them all off.
Or you get the bit at the start with his niece's partner saying, look, you've got an hour to sort this, and I want results. That's another example of that.
Yeah. Although and that's the thing there, it's the toxic waste itself in the mines that draws the Doctor and everyone to there, whereas it's the spiders in the Arachnids in UK that draw them all to the hotel.
Well, they're kind of already there because they're carcasses.
Yeah. So let's compare these now. Maggots versus spiders. Which do you think works better as the threat of the story?
I think the maggots have got more going for them personally because they can metamorphose. The spiders can grow and then they struggle to breathe, whereas the maggots, not only they can
factor, isn't it?
Yeah, they can change into a fly. I mean, I'm not sure what you could have done with that in terms of the danger of it, but also you've got the green because they're covered in the toxic, the byproduct of global chemicals, and if you touch that, you're literally toast. Whereas the spiders, spiders are creepy because people have a phobia of spiders in general. Whereas the spiders,
aren't they? Than the maggots.
But I think the spiders, they didn't do an awful lot. They were just there. The people they managed to get, they just stored food. Like they were confused. I think that's what they were trying to get. Whereas the maggots, they were just there to cause damage.
Yeah, that's true. I think in a way that's why the Green Death doesn't have to deal with the moral implications, I guess, of just killing off the maggots. Whereas Arachnids in the UK does try to make a point of them killing off the spiders and everything and how that's morally wrong. Whereas Green Death you do very much have that threat with the maggots, don't you? There is that imminent danger with them eventually turning into flies and everything. It has to be sorted.
It's more of a ticking time bomb with the maggots.
Yeah, very much.
I think. And what else was I going to say? I've lost my thoughts.
I think while you try and compose them quickly, one thing I was thinking is the maggots work better on screen because they are physically there. Like the CGI for the spiders is brilliant. It's very well done. But I feel like the maggots just have that extra factor to them, don't they? They are very...
Especially in part 2 when you've got Joe and the Doctor in sort of that makeshift boat because it's a mixture of CSO with real maggots and the puppets, which kind of blend seamlessly together. Whereas I thought the little spiders looked decent, especially in the dark, but the big one it felt a bit ropey in my opinion, the big one.
I'm going to be honest. The spiders almost looked cute.
Really?
Yeah, like you can imagine a cuddly toy like that, I feel.
I mean, I thought they were pretty terrifying, especially when Jodie goes down the bath and like you see the fangs.
Yeah.
That was pretty well done.
I think like the eyes and maybe just the big eyes or something. It does just look almost cute, I guess.
I mean, that's the thing. The spiders didn't have an element of danger as well because these are literally house spiders. We don't have poisonous spiders in Britain.
Yeah.
Whereas, the maggots, they're, they latch on to decaying things. That's how flies lay their eggs.
Yeah, and that's also, like you were saying earlier, they've got the toxic waste from global chemicals over them, haven't they?
So there's more horror there. And
yeah.
It adds more danger to the maggots.
Yeah, because they've even got like because Professor Jones gets bitten, doesn't he? And then throughout the final 2 episodes, he's very much suffering with that.
And I remember my point now. The maggots are dealt with humanely with the fungus.
Yeah,
Whereas Jodie just like, just shove them in a panic room and we'll leave them there.
Yeah. I think that aren't spiders even meant to eat each other or something? I heard someone say that spiders do eat each other if they have nothing else to eat.
But then they'll come unstuck when they get so big and they just can't breathe. So
yeah, it's an odd one. I feel like by drawing attention to the moral dilemma of what they were doing with the spiders, it opened up the room for a lot of holes to be poked because it is just a fun romp. And those whereas Green Death doesn't really draw attention to the moral implications of killing off the maggots, does it?
It's more about this is what we're doing to the planet. We need to change now or else we're going to be having giant maggots everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and then whereas Arachnids doesn't quite have that message of what's happening to the planet, does it? It's there, kind of. It's about the landfill, but the focus is a bit too much on the spiders.
I mean, the spiders are a happy accident.
Yeah.
I guess you could say that about the maggots because they're a byproduct of the sludge from global chemicals. Really.
Yeah, that's it. Speaking of global chemicals, let's move on to Boss versus Robertson. I guess we could include Stevens in there as well.
Yeah.
So what do you think of those two sides of things?
Well, I think Stevens is a bit more of a calculative villain because I feel like he lures you into that false sense of security. But everything's fine. Global chemicals is not tarnished. Everything's fine, especially in part 3, where you realize how much power Stevens has.
Oh yeah, well, that's a good scene, isn't it? Where he calls up the Minister of Ecology or something, isn't it?
You think, because the Brigadier's got him because I only answer to Geneva and, I've got powerful friends. And he's like, well, so have I, Brigadier. And then he just rings him up and you realize, damn, the Brigadier's outgunned here.
Yeah, like it gets smack bottom, so to speak, from the Prime Minister.
Yeah, like it just shows how much control Stevens has. And Stevens is the puppet.
Yeah.
And whereas Robertson, he's just got the main thing. What he has, the power he has is just money. Like he can just throw money at a problem and it will be gone. So there's no real threat from him because he's just a businessman. He thinks, like a businessman.
Yeah, and in a way, he isn't meant to have a threat coming from him, is he? Because he's caught up in this story with them all. He's not trying to hide this as such or anything, is he?
I mean, they're both aware of what they're doing. They're both aware of the waste underneath the mines. They're both aware of what they're doing.
Yeah, that's very true.
Whereas, Robertson does become very vulnerable when Kevin's gone.
Yeah, Robertson is treated as a bit more of a joke, I guess.
That is true.
I think one flaw I did think of with the dynamic between Boss and Stevens is that sometimes Stevens is the one like being humane and sentimental. Like you even have that wonderful line from Boss after the orders to destruction of I can't remember whose name it was. The worker who jumps off the side because the programming doesn't work.
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, but yeah, you have that scene and Boss is just like, Stevens, you are a sentimentalist. But later in the story, it's Boss who wants to keep people alive, and Stevens is like, no, we must kill them, we must get rid. And it just seems a bit like maybe that dynamic wasn't thought through well enough.
I kind of feel like that's Boss becoming human. Yeah. But he's gone from a computer to thinking logically and thinking, but then Boss is realizing, the damage, what will be done, the investigation type situation. Yeah. That will unravel more problems where, Boss is now thinking of the bigger picture instead of just thinking of short-term solutions.
Yeah, but it's just a bit odd that Stevens flipped the other way just because I guess they need to have someone to counter Boss in that situation. What's that?
I mean, you do need that just to put Boss in his place.
Yeah.
And to realize that the programming is breaking down.
Oh no, but I mean, so in the terms that Stevens is the one who says we need to kill these people. When earlier in the story, he was the one who was very much against it, being a sentimentalist, as Boss called him. I can see why Boss would flip around as he becomes more human in his programming, and why he'd want to keep things alive. Because he's sort of based after Stevens, isn't he?
Maybe it's like personalities being transferred into one, like a data transfer. I don't know. I might be looking into things too deeply.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Anyway, now let's talk about the waste in the mine, how that was handled in both stories. Because I feel in Arachnids, it's very much that build-up, isn't it? You build up to that reveal of the waste in the mines.
Well, they both have similar build-up, certainly. Like, what's that smell?
Yeah. And you
have that.
You have a bit of it in Yaz's dad's kitchen for some reason.
Well, he's got the waste there, isn't he? And the mum does say that it's leaking out throughout Sheffield, doesn't it?
Yeah, which I don't get how that quite works.
No, it doesn't really.
That's one of those odd things. It's something that the element is there to set it up, but when you think about the setup a bit too much, it doesn't make any sense.
I think that's the problem with Arachnids, isn't it? The more you think about it, the more holes you find within it.
Yeah, the more holes the toxic waste leak out of.
Exactly, and I feel like the Green Death, that it's toxic because it's this bright green, putrid green color, like it was in Inferno. I can see people complaining about the Green Death, going, "Well, this is a copy of Inferno. Where's the hairy lion creature's going to appear from?" Whereas this, I think it was kind of subtle, and I didn't really feel like there was danger from the waste in Arachnids.
Yeah, there's not really much after that, is there? Like once you have that reveal of the waste, it's then back to the spiders. Whereas the whole stuff in the mines, that is a threat for the early half of the Green Death. You've got the characters wandering around there.
And of course, you've got numerous people being killed by it. The opening shot of the story is somebody literally in panic and fear because he's glowing bright green. Whereas I don't think the actual waste problem got solved in Arachnids, did it?
No, it didn't. It's still up there, isn't
it? So it's just left to fester and continue.
Yeah, that's another hole we've just poked in it. Because they dealt with the spiders, but there could still be more made down there if another spider just wanders down there, mixes in with everything.
I mean, there'd probably be like another delivery down there or something.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's another sort of loose end that just isn't tied up. Whereas, I guess in the Green Death, it's still down there, but because the whole mine was blown up, there's not really much you could do about that after that.
And plus, the maggots have been dealt with by the fungus.
Yeah, because they did say they were going to open up the mine again and get more fungus down there to kill the rest of them, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like, do you think? I imagine the fungus also has an effect on the toxic. No,
I mean, it might absorb it.
no, I feel like that wouldn't make too much sense because then it's sort of at the point that you're giving them an excuse to continue using that process. If like they could continue to make all that fuel and everything, and then just throw a bunch of fungus on the waste they make.
Yeah.
So I thought that would counter the message a bit against the fuel.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it is just for the infection and the maggots, really. But yeah, it's interesting how that is something quite different between the two stories, I guess. But at the same time, it is still that same setup of big business throwing loads of waste down into a disused mine.
Well, it's keeping costs low because nobody wants the land. So I think, right, I've got the land cheap, now let's build an empire.
Yeah, and it is that whole thing of cutting corners.
And
in a way, I almost think that works slightly better for Arachnids in terms of Robertson as the villain. He is above it all in a way. He's sort of not quite paying attention to all that stuff. He is overlooking it all. He knows that it's going down and everything, but he doesn't think anything of it. Whereas in the Green Death with Boss, pumping it down there is sort of something deliberate by him, and he does have evil intentions outside of that. If you know.
I mean, Boss is thinking of the bigger picture of, providing cheap fuel for everyone, whereas Robertson's looking at it from a business point of view, where he's thinking, how can I expand my empire?
Yeah, that's Yeah, that's very true. It comes down to that thing again of Boss wanting to take over the world at the end. I think maybe it could have been slightly more localized, like just wanting to somehow deal with all of you and whatnot, because they know the truth about the mines and what Global Chemicals have done. I think it should have more maybe been a damage control thing at the end, like Boss is trying to deal with units somehow, rather than have him randomly be taking over the world war machine style with connecting up with other computers and everything.
You feel like the headset they use throughout the Green Death.
Yeah.
You feel like you could have like one big massive shockwave type of thing where people just fall under Boss's command in that local area in like a 5-mile radius or something.
Yeah, something like that where it would. But the idea would be that Boss is still trying to cover up what's going on there, and then it would be directly tied to the waste and everything. Whereas instead, you just have this computer trying to take over the world, which sort of comes out of nowhere a bit for me.
Yeah, I do see a point with that.
Yeah. So yeah, there we go. We can be fair. We can poke holes in both Arachnids and the Green Death, although nevertheless, the Green Death is still far superior in most respects.
That's without a question there.
Yeah, definitely. But now for the runtime, because they are two very different beasts, aren't they, in that respect? And you were saying earlier about this being about Arachnids being something you could just pop on and watch any time. It's nothing to take too seriously. Whereas Green Death obviously has a bit more meat to it. It's quite a bit longer.
You mean fungus?
Yeah, a bit more fungus. And so, yeah. Do you think the idea of Arachnids could maybe be dealt with better for a longer story, or do you think it suits the 50 minutes it's got?
I think it's kind of like what the Ghost Monument is, but there are ideas there what should be expanded on and elements what are cut. Like I feel like if you cut the whole family thing out, I think then it'll probably have more time to do with the spiders and the waste.
Yeah.
But I think if you it's like what you said, but it felt like a first draft.
Yeah.
I feel like if it did have a few more rewrites and a bit of a rejig, then I think that it would fit the format.
Yeah, I can see that.
because I don't
It
think that
doesn't
it
need to
would
be a
work as a
two-part.
two-parter.
It is a story that can work as a one-parter, can't it?
I mean, I'd rather watch it as a one-parter. I don't think you can drag it out that much.
No, I agree. I just,
Um,
for me, it sort of does fall apart after that toxic waste reveal, and then it's just sort of like a bit of a messy end getting all the spiders dealt with and everything, isn't it?
yeah, it's kind of like, how do we get these spiders wrapped up
Yeah,
in 20 minutes and, get the companions back on board the TARDIS?
yeah, that's the thing.
Whereas the Green Death, like I said, it had that right from the offset. It had a goal and it achieved the goal, and it had time to do everything it wanted to do. It
Yeah,
had time for Joe to say goodbye.
yeah, that is very true. I think Green Death works perfectly as a six-parter. I feel like the flaws that we mentioned earlier could easily be worked around in the six-part. It doesn't need more time to flesh anything out. It's just a couple of changes here and there.
I mean, no, it doesn't need to be a seven-parter.
No, definitely not. I
No.
think it works perfectly as it is. I think the pacing is great.
It's one of those stories where I've watched so many times you kind of know what's coming with it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a little bit of a negative for me, but I think that's with any story you overwatch.
Because it's funny because you mentioned that because I mentioned earlier that with me I haven't watched it too much, and so that whole thing of Boss wanting to take over the world suddenly came out of nowhere,
Yeah,
and
I
I
mean,
completely forgot about it. Yeah.
it's like you just need a little recap when you're watching it. It's like, okay, that's when that happens. That's when the Doctor goes to a storeroom. That's when he climbs over the fence and gets locked in.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
It's kind of those things where you just start to put the pieces together with it.
Yeah, I get what you mean there. So yeah, in terms of political messages, because obviously Arachnids have a bit more going on in there in terms of that, but it's not as well developed, is it?
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Trump thing, which again, it's trying to be current, but again, I don't think it's going to have the relevance in 20 years time, 30 years
Yeah,
time, because Trump's going to be long gone.
yeah. Like the business cutting corners thing, I think will have relevance, but yeah, like that whole Trump allegory they had going on will just won't people won't get it then.
And I think American society as well, with the whole gun control, whether I think that'll be a big change, whether America in a couple of years' time does, smell the coffee and realizes they do have a problem with guns.
Yeah,
I think that'll be an interesting thing to see if that story still holds that message in a
yeah.
couple of years' time.
But I feel like it does such a botched job with that message as well. Like it is just the guns.
That's the
No.
thing with political stories, isn't it? Because you can either become really heavy-handed, or it can just be, not in your face, but just subtly done.
Yeah. And it has too many different political things thrown in there that it loses the focus. Whereas Green Death does have that message of sustainable energy over the fuel and everything, and doing everything sustainably being the way forward.
Because it's focused on that one thing.
Yeah, and that is still relevant today. It's almost a shame that it's still relevant today in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, that is what it is, and it's nice that a lot of the Pertwee era as well does have that quality to it, where it still is relevant.
I still think the Green Death's going to be, still relevant in about 40 years' time.
Yeah,
Because I feel like we're still at that problem of trying to find alternative solutions. We're still using fossil fuels. We're burning wood now.
yeah,
We're using hydro energy, and we've got cars are a big problem right now because we're trying to sort out, electric cars. And I feel like that's probably going to be the next step for us.
yeah.
That's going to be the next big change in our lifetimes. I think there's still going to be relevance there because of the whole fuel thing.
Mm,
So I think Green Death's going to be relevant for another 30 years at least.
yeah. And landfill has been a growing issue recently because obviously the more waste we've had since then, the more it has.
With plastic, especially, yeah.
Yeah, and that's obviously not a topic the Green Death tackled, and that's a topic this story tries to tackle. But in the end, it's once it's revealed as the twist, it's then forgotten about, isn't it? Really?
It's like, this is where the spiders come from. Let's deal with the spiders.
Yeah, that's the thing. Whereas Green Death is very much about tackling the source of the sludge and everything.
I mean, I feel like if you use the good elements of the Green Death, it's kind of if you put the good elements of both, then you've got a really good political story.
Yeah.
And I think it will make it quite a nice, tight story because Chibnall, isn't afraid of copying Doctor Who stories because, like I said, the Silurian two-parter is a love letter to season 7 because you've got the hostages in the form of Alea and Elliot the Sun, which is like ambassadors with the alien hostages, and you've got the Silurians, and then you've got the drill thing, which is Inferno.
Yeah.
So I feel like Chibnall could have done a better copy of the Green Death and Planet of Spiders for this.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's just maybe it could done with a bit more runtime, as we mentioned before, but at the same time, it is just how it's handled, and the fact that it tried to have too many different political messages, but without really doing anything with them. They're just there.
It just goes back to that point where people were praising the 50-minute format, going, "Oh, we're going to have really tight, concise stories." It makes not the difference having that extra 5 minutes. In some cases, it kind of makes Chibnall stories really suffer.
Yeah, they can be quite messy at times, and like especially on rewatch, they suffer. Don't like Arachnids, I feel.
But like you said, they lose that mystery because that's the thing. What really engages you with it when you first watch it.
Yeah.
But then you know what's coming, so you feel like it's lost the element of surprise.
So any concluding? Let's start off with Green Death. Any concluding thoughts now on a rating?
It's just beautiful, sheer poetry. It's just one of the iconic poetry stories for the right reason.
Yeah.
It's definitely in my top 10 favorite stories of all time.
Oh, that is a good.
Yeah, I mean, I just think season 10 in general is such a powerful season. Probably
Blu-ray.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Blu-ray so we can see the maggots in high definition glory. So yeah, Green Death's got to be a 10, hasn't it? It's got to be 10 global chemical waste pipes out of 10.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, that is a fair rating. I think I'm going to go lower. I'm debating between 8 and a 9 at the moment.
9.
Yeah. I'll be nice. I'll go to 9 because I did definitely enjoy this rewatch of it. It's got a lot going for it, especially in the first half. It just comes down to that whole thing with Boss I have a few problems with, but it's not too bad in the way it's dealt with, and it explores its themes well. So I'll go a 9.
I mean, I think another thing with both stories is I think what makes both stories enjoyable to watch is the chemistry between the Doctor and the crew.
Oh, that's very true.
I think that's another similarity what really make it quite engaging to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And also the chemistry between Joe and Cliff works very like that. It is surprisingly well done as a romantic story, unlike Leela and Andrid.
It's not forced down your throat. It's built over a course of time.
Yeah.
Because you can tell in, I think it's part 2, that, when he realizes Joe's gone down the mine, oh, she's foolish. Like, you can tell there's a bit of love there because there's a bit of bantering between the two there.
Yeah, and the way he's the young Doctor.
Yeah. Like when the Doctor first confronts, Cliff going like, you're remarkable for your age, of your time, which I think is quite nice, that he can appreciate it and realize that Joe, should be looked after as much as it pains him to admit it.
Yeah, it's like that whole scene like when they're about to kiss. Oh no, sorry, it's a bit after when Joe and Cliff are about to kiss. They're going to sleep and everything, and Joe's reading the book on the Amazon, and Cliff's about to stay in the room with Joe, isn't he? And then the Doctor sort of like just walks him away and says, "Oh, I need to talk to you about something."
Yeah,
it's very funny, and you know the Doctor knows exactly what he's doing there.
I think the Doctor had an inkling in part 1, just going, "Look, he's trouble. Joe doesn't want to go to Metebelis 3 with me, and I've been really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have my revenge on you, Sonny Jim."
Yeah, he's very much a dad to Joe, isn't he? And
he is that father figure, yeah.
Yeah.
He is that very parent figure, because he does wrap, with any companion, he wraps them under his wings of his cloak, and, they're there, you're going to be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much just him letting go of Joe, this story.
Well, you just say in part one, the fledgling flies from the coop.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I love all that stuff. I think that is probably the most well done stuff of the story in many ways. And like I said earlier, it's probably the perfect companion departure.
And it matches Katy Manning's, character very well.
Yeah, agree. So now rating Arachnids in the UK. Having watched it again, where would you go with this?
Again, watching The Green Death and watching this, you do realise the big similarities between the two. But I've realised, for kids, this is terrifying. It's light-hearted fun, like I said, but you needed it after Rosa because Rosa was such a heavy thing, and the way it dealt with it was brilliant. So I think it's harmless fun. It's what you needed for your popcorn on a Sunday, and I think it's got to be a 7 out of 10. Like, despite its faults, there's still enjoyment to be had.
Yeah, it is that whole thing of you can poke holes in it on paper, but when it comes down to actually sitting and watching it, it really should be measured by how much you enjoy it, shouldn't it? Not how much you can poke holes in the plot.
I mean, it's not like the story's trying to be funny.
Yeah.
But I find
a Wedge Sheeran bit.
Yeah, I mean that's where it's trying to be funny, but it doesn't land for me, those bits. Whereas Robertson, I just find joy.
Yeah,
especially the whole Kevin thing that you care about your bodyguard, but then you just wang him in a room and just say, "Kevin, are you all right?"
Yeah, there is a lot of fun to do.
And then next minute, you're just like, "Oh, Kevin, it's just." What are you doing? If you care about him that much, you would just go, right, come on, let's go.
Yeah, funny. And I think as well that there's a lot of joy to be had in the interaction between Jodie and the companions, isn't there? And the companions in between each other.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think they're very well written. They've got good characters, and the interaction between them and the chemistry between the actors is well done as well.
Especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
Especially at the start.
Yeah, like that whole thing of, oh, we haven't been invited. And she's like, yes, of course you are.
Well, it just shows how much a friendship can evolve in half an hour.
Yeah, they have very much grown to become a whole team, a unit. Yeah.
Which is another similarity to the Pertwee era.
Yeah, Yeah, so for my rating, I'm not. Yeah, it is that whole thing of how much enjoyment it comes down to. So I think maybe on that it is still a 7.
Oh, you've gone up, have you?
Yeah. Did I go 6.5 for Hoovenhagen?
I don't know whether it was me 6.5 or not, or whether I've gone up or not.
Yeah.
I can't remember that. We're both a 7.
Yeah. For those who don't know, by the way, Hoovian High Council is, well, it used to be run on Scaramouche Productions channel, but he has been having some technical difficulties when it comes to Series 11. So that's where a big group of us all get together and chat about the recent episodes. And recently that has been on Ben's channel, about the last 4 of them. Not sure whether the 5th one tomorrow will be on there or not. But I imagine we're still sticking with Ben's for that. But we will see. It might be on Scaramouche Productions, Matt's channel.
I mean, I've heard nothing, so I presume it's going to be on mine.
Yeah, there we see it. You can look forward to that. But yeah, I think I'll go 7. I'm in a generous mood tonight. I enjoyed it enough on rewatch. It's nothing incredible. It does have its flaws. I don't think it could be any higher than a 7. But just for how much fun I have with it, I've got to be nice and go 7, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, is that all we have to say?
I think that is. I think we covered everything.
Thank you for joining me, Ben.
No, pleasure. Pleasure to talk all things Pertwee.
Yeah, I thought you would enjoy a bit of chat about the Green Death.
I very much appreciate that. But even though you caused me much heartache watching The Departure again, because boy, that gets me.
Yeah, send me a bill for the tissues. I'll write that check out for you.
Yeah, I need those man-sized tissues.
Yeah, it's a very moving ending.
Absolutely.
And Maybe at some point I'll have to rank all the companion departures, or like top 5, maybe. I don't know.
There you go. That's a video for your another return in about another year.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be the next video that you will all see. But hoping to get a bit more active on this channel. Sorry that it's been so long since the last video. So if you have watched, thank you for watching. If you're watching live right now, thank you. If you're watching in the future, thank you too. And we will see you again some other time. Tomorrow on Ben's channel, most likely, for the conundrum.
Tuna tangerine conundrum.
Yeah, hopefully we find out how to say that word in the episode. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you again some other time. Bye, everyone.